Welcome to Hustle Radio, a podcast about the New York hustle mentality centered in the e-commerce industry, the official podcast of the E-Com Cooperative. Introducing your hosts, Frank Acosta and David Dayon.
Frank Acosta cannot make it today, so we are joined by Yoni Mazur from Getita.
Yo. What's going on, everybody?
Thank you for bailing Frank out today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Ellie actually had no idea that you were co-hosting instead of Frank, so it's a surprise to him too. We always bring on the guest with some music, so hold on a second. Let's get some music going. And
Put some logic on. I'm listening to Logic lately. It makes a lot of sense.
I feel like I'm in the WWE. I got my entrance music.
How are we doing, guys?
You don't have any songs in Yiddish or something?
No Yiddish. I know. I know Yoni is not a typical fan of gangster rap, but
I'm actually, full disclosure, I am. I'm very into rap.
So we got. I felt like Ellie doesn't rock with some Lipi Schmelzer, So I'm trying to play to the crowd. What's going on, Ellie? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy about Yoni joining. Definitely much better than Frank, I would say. Much better.
Much better. I agree. Much better. You hear that, Frank? I'm kidding. Frank doesn't watch the episode.
No, I know Ellie feels very comfortable with Yoni's around, so I'm trying to patch it up.
Shout out to Yoni Kuzminski.
Yes, sir.
He's the big fish. He sends me in as the reconnaissance to see if the podcast is worthwhile, and then he decides whether he wants to join.
Yes.
Nice.
So today's topic is building a framework for an e-commerce business. And like I said, we have a guest host, Yoni Mazur from Getita. So Ellie, we usually give a little bit of an intro, and then we ask our guests to give a little intro about themselves. Usually, we've never had an intro done the same way. I have my own way to intro, and then we ask the guest give a little bit of in his own words your entrance into the space.
Sure.
So for today, for the sake of today's episode, I'm going to explain what Escala does, but I'm actually going to ask you to re-explain it and fine-tune it if I don't do it justice. So, so like we said, Eli Lipi, for everyone calls him Lipi. That's kind of the nickname that he goes by. But Lipi is the founder and director of Escala, and Escala helps businesses, e-commerce businesses. But I want to say not specific to e-commerce. You guys would do a business, or is it only e-commerce businesses?
We're about 90% e-commerce, but we'll work with anything that's digital.
But I thought that was true. So mainly e-commerce, but a business in general. And Escala helps them build out their protocols, build out their structure. Pertaining to the Amazon space and the e-commerce space, it's not easy to kind of fine-tune all the different parts you need to run a successful business. And everyone's going to tell you it comes down to the team you have. And of course, there's some wise words said, do what you do well and outsource the rest. But obviously, and outsourcing, it's very, very important part of the business. But on the other end of outsourcing, there's refining your team and building your team and making sure that you're equipped to handle what you can do well or what you should be able to do well. And for that, Escala comes in clutch and helps businesses of all sizes grow that and establish that and build that. And that is my version of my introduction into Lipi and Escala. They do wonderful work. I definitely have seen it firsthand and very big fan of what the company does in general, the mission. And that's my version of an intro. Yoni, if you want to throw your own intro, if I missed anything, if you feel like you have a better way to say it, and then we'll end off with Lipi's intro of himself.
Got it. So as far as I understand is, there's special companies out there in the business world, right? I believe Boston Consulting Group, BCG is one of them, where they basically put your business on X-ray and tell you where in the structure you can do things where your structure is going to be more solidified and more built to scale and be successful for the long run. That's why many state-of-the-art, public companies, global leaders in their industries use these kind of companies to really do all the right moves and be able to put all the right moves into play. But these companies cost a fortune. With BCG, it can cost you millions and millions, along the years to do the right thing. But here, as far as I understand, Scala is kind of that caliber, but they're bringing it or democratizing this into the world of e-commerce. So, e-commerce sellers can have the opportunity to really see what they have now and also plan into the future with the right structure in mind. So when really they do succeed and implement all the strategy, they're invincible. So I hope that I hope this did justice also to Lipi's position.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did a great job. Our tagline is professionalizing Amazon businesses. So just to clarify, we've got two separate businesses that both serve that function of professionalization. So there's been a huge shift in the Amazon sort of industry. Anyone who is at the Prosper Show or any show is going to recognize just at a glance that there's something completely different happening in Amazon, which is obviously the introduction of lots of venture capital interest and through all of these different aggregators. What that's going to mean is that, Amazon, you could probably get away with this being a hustle. And I know I'm on the New York Hustle radio, but I'm here to sort of talk about sort of moving away from that hustle mentality when it comes to Amazon. And not because you're not going to work hard, but because we're going to put the focus on working smart. Now, you can work smart and hard at the same time, as long as you're not working hard without working smart. So the two businesses both focus on how to sort of how to turn your business into a far more sophisticated business. On the one hand, we have Escala, which is the sort of the equivalent of that Boston Consulting Group, EY, Accenture, etc., where basically we're totally undercutting the business consulting market and taking you direct to the source. So you'll work with sort of a consultant in the Philippines who is going to radically professionalize your operation. So we're talking about documenting your SOPs, giving you recommendations for your organizational structure, building you out a hiring roadmap, implementing that all into a project management tool. And that's the one that I work very closely with. And then the other one is Multiply Me. So basically, once we've built that entire roadmap and you've got everything systemized, who actually does the work? So you don't have to have that hustle mentality 24/7. And that's when we can find you talent inside of the Philippines and, at a really professional level. So we're trying to move away from that VA culture of I just find someone who does tasks for me, but rather we're finding high-level talent in the Philippines. There's still that element of cost savings because of the difference in sort of living expenses, but very high level talent. So we're placing COOs, we're placing brand managers, and we'll never give anyone the title of a VA because a lot of the time that doesn't give them the opportunity to really drive growth inside of your business. It sort of just is someone that does tasks for you. So those are the two different elements, but the ultimate aim of what we're doing and our mission is to professionalize this space so that regular sellers can keep up with where the space is going, which is that era of sort of systemization.
How long, which company came first? I have a feeling, I'm going to guess that I think Multiply Me came first, but I'm curious and I want to know which company came first and how long before the first company, how long before the second company did the first company come?
Yeah, it's a good question. They came in the order that they should have come in reverse order, but Multiply Me came first, where we noticed that was something we were doing really well when we owned an e-commerce business. We had a team of 5 in Israel. I live in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and we had about 35 in the Philippines, and that allowed us to scale really quickly. And again, we sort of recognized that this VA culture wasn't going to work, and we had a whole team in the Philippines. So that was for our personal business. When that business had an exit, we sort of thought, what's the next thing we want to do? And offering that as a service, empowering sellers to sort of harness offshore hubs, but in a much more professional way. That was our mission. But pretty quickly we realized that doesn't work unless you have the internal systems to support it as well. It wouldn't work with an internal employee, or it would be much harder with an internal employee, meaning someone local, but it becomes even harder when it's offshore because there are some cultural barriers. Sometimes you're not working on exactly the same time zone. Sometimes there's sort of that element of it's a little bit harder to communicate, whether that's because of the language or sort of Zoom or whatever. So so then we realized that a lot of these clients, they've got the right intentions, we're finding great talent, but it's still not working sometimes. So that's how Escala was born. But Escala has become the parent company of Multiply Me, and we're sort of focusing everything we do as a subset of Escala of that real ultimate mission of how to make your business a lot more professional.
In the order of setting up an Amazon business, you would need Multiply Me. You need to staff, and then very shortly after you have the staff, you need to figure out the structure. So it sort of makes sense that you guys landed on the staffing before you landed on the structuring and the protocols of it all. And they both happen to go very hand in hand. How many years is Multiply Me around, and how many years is Escala around for?
Yeah, we started Multiply Me at the start of 2020, and then about 4 months later was the birth of Escala. So Multiply Me, sort of the inception of it was the end of 2019. We launched January 2020, and we launched Escala in June of 2020. So we're still reasonably new.
So you guys
very fast.
You guys launched when COVID broke out into the world, basically.
Exactly. So we were well set up.
It might have seemed that like people might think that was probably the worst time to launch a business. But I want to say that for e-commerce, it possibly was the best time to launch a business.
Yeah, I mean, we have no point of comparison, but because we don't know what it's like to launch that type of business at a different time. But logic would say that it was a really great time for us. There was initial sort of couple of months where no one wanted to be very aggressive in anything that they did because they didn't know what was happening. And then pretty quickly, everyone, some people had let go of staff in the US. Some people just wanted to grow because the e-commerce, it was booming. So people had to build a team to support the growth that they were experiencing. And they were like, who can we go to build our growth? Multiply Me, that's a great option. So,
wow.
So we were very lucky in a lot of ways.
Definitely. And with all the transitioning happening from people, working from home or getting, furloughed or whatever happened with the world, all the changes, you guys, I believe that it, I'm always like bringing out how obviously we always want everyone to be healthy and everyone to be fine, but at the same time, a bad situation can have silver linings. And I find myself saying how, COVID was very bad for a whole lot of reasons. And it was also good for e-commerce. People, e-commerce had growth that it wouldn't have had for years to come. And it all happened all in a year or less. And it's just definitely I think something that we're going to look back at and realize how.
I think it pushed us 5 years to the future, it really pushed us forward as an industry. 5 years at least, maybe even more. People who never would have shopped online were forced to shop online. They couldn't shop anywhere else. They're just afraid for their lives. They could be in certain age groups. It could be 60 plus, 70 plus, 80 plus, 90-year-old plus. All of us, and now that they got pushed into shopping, they're loving it. They're adopting it, and that opens up so much opportunity for e-commerce sellers out there on so many levels because they're home, they're stuck, they can afford it. And then maybe they don't even have enough products out there that kind of fit their hobbies, needs, interests. So that opens up a lot of opportunity to, supply that demand. But as you do it, you're going to need a good infrastructure and team behind you. Hence come, Mr. Lipi.
I think just to build on what you said, like 5 years ago, people probably still didn't have that same trust in an e-commerce business. If you told your friends that you were running an e-commerce business, they would think that you're sort of just looking for some type of arbitrage. But COVID gave e-commerce businesses an opportunity to actually give back to the community. People in e-commerce businesses, if you really connect with a brand, which a lot of people started to do, and Amazon's seeing a lot more like native brands, that can improve your quarantine exponentially. If you're stuck at home, but all of a sudden you find this brand that gives you this great hobby and they've got all these, value adds as part of the brand, that can change your 2 weeks. And so it gave people an opportunity to really build meaningful businesses apart from just, money-making businesses.
What's the, I think you'll both agree, what's the official, like if I had to paint a picture for an Amazon seller, I'm not gonna let you guys guess. I'm just gonna say it, and you'll understand what I'm saying. It's a guy working out of his garage. That's like the typical
a guy or a lady. Let's be equal here. Yeah.
The guy or girl who is working out of their garage, and boxes piled up to the ceiling. And I feel like, again, just to build on what Lipi just said, the world changed. Now, if anything, like there happens to be these facilities opening up that are changing the way that people portray an e-commerce seller. There's somewhere in Lakewood opening up where it's like a flex space where you have shared warehouse space, and you have an office space, and it's overlooking the warehouse, and you can pull the goods whenever you want.
It's like a WeWork especially for e-commerce.
Exactly.
Shared space, yeah.
And I heard them saying, like, the slogan, changing the way that the Amazon or e-commerce seller, like the whole garage thing, changing that. And I feel like the world has been flipped around where the whole world is working from home. I just saw something that said Amazon's actually postponing coming back to the office until 2022 officially.
So they're all also in the garage. All corporate America.
Now we have the whole world is in their house, in their garage, in their, and then we have Amazon and e-commerce businesses booming and blowing up and exploding, and they're like, I know somebody who's moving out of his house, home office, in the e-commerce space, and it's just like the complete opposite of what you'd expect.
That's true, because the commercial real estate here in the United States took a big hit, but the only ones who didn't is all the warehouses that are involved with the offices and warehouses that are involved with e-commerce. Yeah, they're booming, while all the traditional ones are just collapsing.
Yeah, totally.
So we always transition from who our guest is and their background, and we always try to pull out a little bit of that hustle mentality. And Lipi made it very easy for me today by saying that I'm going to ask you to say that line again in a minute. But basically, and I love it. I love how, typically we're always like, you got to hustle. But it seems that at a certain point, after you've done your fair share of hustling, it's time to level up and get to a point where I'm gonna murder this line you said, but where you're not hustling anymore because you're acting smarter. Just tell me.
The line is we don't want to work hard. We want to work smart.
Okay.
Which means that the output's gonna be greater. You're just gonna have to do less work to get there. I think that the reality of e-commerce businesses, let's be honest, is that we work smart and we work hard.
Yeah.
And that's okay as long as we're working smart. But the simple rule that we always speak to our clients about is that if you can delegate to someone, it's called the law of delegation. If you can delegate to someone who can do the same job but 80% at 80% of the capacity. So David, if you're going in and removing negative keywords from the PPC campaigns, and you've got someone in your team that can do that 80% as well as you can, you should delegate that so that you can elevate. It's sort of the concept of delegate and elevate. So if you can delegate that means you can elevate yourself to do something else. You can go and find new clients. You can go and create new content for LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. You can go and find new partners for the Ecom Cooperative.
There we go.
So that notion of like, if someone can do what I'm doing, then I'm not working smart, I'm working hard. And then once you delegate that gives you the opportunity to work on something that is like hard. So that's what we mean. It doesn't mean that you should lie on the beach and just get a tan and your business can plateau. That's not what we're talking about when we say don't hustle. It just means
it's a new light on the whole hustle mentality, because obviously hustle kind of represents working hard. I think to the general public, it doesn't necessarily represent working smarter. And if anything, it might be the opposite of working smart. Like, it's like, oh, you got to just do everything and just put a lot of output in. But I'm going to say that, at least according to us, to hustle is not only to work hard, it's to work smart. It's to delegate, it's to elevate, it's to be able to, like we said, do what you do best, outsource whatever you don't do well. And make sure you have the right recipe for success. Make sure you have the right team in place. It's all part of the recipe. It's all part of what you need to do to succeed. And I don't think it's done. I don't think I have like a sign on my wall of like a hustle recipe, and I always say it has like 10 or 12 steps. And it's not done. I think that there's more. I think that there's more. Everyone does a hustle their own way. Everyone, some people are the type that they work a lot of hours. Some people, like you said, can get a lot of things done very quickly. I was talking to somebody who said, that they can do anything. They don't need to work long hours. They know that when they work, they work. They turn off all distractions. They turn off all notifications, and they just work. They get things done. They have a very high level of output, and it's again not maybe like the traditional hustle, but it's a very small amount. Somehow I feel like I'm doing a high level of output. I'm working a lot of time, and somehow I'm not. But like I said, I think everyone has work to do with just fine tuning that recipe for success, and everyone kind of does it in their own way. So the whole goal is of this podcast is just to try to pull out anything we can, which hopefully the listeners can take something away from and implement something. And I think this point of working smarter is not like the opposite of working hard. It's in a new way. It kind of gets things done.
I wanna touch upon that recipe or evolve it to, I guess, what I see in front of me. So as far as I'm concerned, hustle never stops, but evolves. It evolves in a scale. So how do you hustle at scale? And even more importantly than that, how do you create an ecosystem around you with a structure and a team where they all hustle with you? Because if a whole team of people are hustlers in a good way, they're hardworking, they're dedicated, their mission is always in front of them, they're all well calibrated, to be in the same hustle together all at the same time. That's when you win. That's when you win big. So hustle the world. The word itself is embrace it and expand it. That's what we're trying to say here. And now it's not like you hustled, you expanded the team. Now you don't have to hustle another the day because everybody has a job. No, hustle it's a community thing. So how do you scale, evolve, and mature the hustle into a team, a community, and a calibration of things, and grow from there or take it from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I definitely don't want to come across as cynical about the hustle. It's 11 p.m., dude, so it's 11:30 p.m. for me, and I'm on this call, and I'm here because I love it, but I'm working hard and working super hard. I think the way that I differentiate between sort of what's a bad hustle and what's a good hustle is, am I bringing myself closer to the long-term vision? It's in a very Amazonian sort of language. I love speaking the Amazon leadership principles, even though I never worked there, but they talk about ownership as, leaders are always, I forget the exact wording, but leaders don't sacrifice the short term for the long term. So sometimes it's tempting to go and just smash out some work, but you sort of have to ask yourself, is this going to serve me in the long term, or is this serving me for right now? So, I came to a realization a couple of months ago that the best way that I can spend my time is to invest in the leaders that I have in Escala. So Escala is sort of growing. We're currently 20 consultants. And within those 20 consultants, we have about 7 senior consultants. And I've realized that the most valuable thing that I can do with my time is not sort of sit in on the nitty gritty of what we're doing on a day-to-day, but rather to invest in those leaders so that they can be the ones to invest in, develop their talent. And I've sort of realized that if I want Escala to grow to where it's going to be, it can't just be about me. As tempting as it might be for me to go and spend 2 hours building a process map for a client, and I would probably really delight that client, but that's short-term thinking. Whereas long-term thinking is, how do I bring Escala closer to the vision that I have for 24 months, 36 months, and that's investing in the leaders. So I'll build upskilling days, and I'll sit with them on leadership sessions once a week, and we'll all listen to a specific podcast and talk about how we can implement that internally. And so that's where I'm investing a lot of my time. And that doesn't mean that I'm completely removed from the day-to-day. That would just be...
No, but that alone, that growth mentality and the structure that you're creating, guess what? That's a hustle. To invest in each leader that you have and to give so much from yourself and pour it to their bucket, that's a hustle right there. So once again, it's a hustle. It's a hustle that's built with scale in mind. So it's basically like that. Instead of like being flat and firefighting and just maintaining what's going on, it's like tilted to growth. So actually, it probably involves more energy, more sophistication, more leadership skills on your end, long-term vision, and believing what you're doing is right. So you do less of the tactical now because you're more into the strategy. It takes quite a balancing character to be able to pull that off, because you want to firefighting. That's the nature of the entrepreneur. But go ahead.
And I mean, I just want to say, when we work with clients with Escala, we'll finish a project, we give them like this whole survey to fill out, and I'll speak to them one-on-one as well. And the number one thing that the feedback our clients give is, you allowed me to stop working in the business and start working on the business, which is, a subtle distinction. And that doesn't mean that they've stopped hustling. It just means that the hustle is now far more effective. We do have some clients that are, very honest and say, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be spending more time with my kids. And that's, totally respectable. And then we have clients who are like, I just want to be pushing, but I'm spending all my time opening cases with Amazon, or I'm spending all my time, doing really low impact work that's just urgent. And the number one impact that they say to us when they stop working with us is like when they finish working with us is, wow, I feel like I have so much more time in my day to dedicate to things that are
when they graduate working with you, when they graduate, they get certified.
Yeah, exactly. When we give them their stamp.
Exactly.
But exactly, that's the main thing that they say. It's not that they're working less hard. It's just that the work that they feel that they're doing is far more effective.
I want to bring out that point you just said about stopping to work in the business and working on the business. That is something that when I first started Amazon Experts about 3 years ago, I only worked in the business for maybe a year of the business. All I did was, because I came from being an account manager, working with the client and basically, making sure that my clients were successful. I did that for a bunch of years and I was good at it. And I didn't really realize that until somebody one of my mentors told me, very clearly, and they were trying to tell me this for months and I just didn't hear it until one day they said similar to the words that you just said. They're like, if you're always running the business and working in the business, when are you going to work on making it better? When are you going to work on growing it? And it just like hit home. And thank God, ever since I heard that in that meeting, in that setting, I definitely made time to do the latter. And I would say that the business transformed, the business changed completely.
Yeah.
I want to just say, like, as someone, you're talking about it as someone who, takes the person through the tunnel and shows them the light. I'm someone who used to be there where, like, starting out, just growing people's accounts on Amazon and then having my own company. Having a company is not just running an Amazon account, it's having a company. And, if you're just working on growing the Amazon account, you're not working on the business. So I feel like that point, when you said it, my eyes lit up. I smiled. It was like.
But David, how'd you grow out of it? You had to invest from yourself into your team, your people, no?
Of course.
And that was probably a different level and sophistication of hustle.
Definitely.
There we go.
Every time, by the way, Lipi said it's 11:30 at night. Every single time I had a series of jobs before I started Amazon Experts where I thought to myself, and I remember patting myself on the back and saying, well, last job I worked hard, but this job I'm putting in more time, I'm putting in more energy, I'm putting in more, I'm answering emails in the night. And every time, like 3 or 4 times, I was like, all right, well, last job was this job is going to be, and of course, you can't even compare it from working as an employee to owning your own business. You cannot compare it. But ultimately, it's, in the end of the day, it's the most rewarding and it's the most,
And then things start to happen. I'm sure both of you wouldn't have had the time to really dedicate to the e-com cooperative if you were working super in the business. As soon as when you can start to see the forest from the trees and you have time to sort of step back, you can notice all these other opportunities that arise and you can direct your hustle towards those types of opportunities as well. So yeah, I mean,
we got a question here from Chaim, who's a good friend of mine. I'm not done with you, Chaim, so don't go anywhere. After Lipi answers, I have something to talk to you. A second point we didn't ask about, but Lipi, can you answer this question for him? What type of positions can you staff for Multiply Me?
Yeah, so the way Multiply Me works is that we've got a team of 10 recruiters, so they're all headhunters. So you basically come to us. You speak to Kat, who's sort of our director of client engagement. She works with you to build the job description based on what you need. Now, that job description can be anything because you don't pay until we get to that successful placement. So we'll build that job description. It can be, we'll guide you on what we think is realistic and also on a realistic budget. And then our recruiters will go out and try and find candidates. We'll bring lots of candidates into our funnel. We'll do the interviews. We'll do the background checks. We'll make sure that, they're actually, sometimes we'll will include a test as part of that recruitment funnel, and only once they've passed through that entire funnel, we'll endorse them to you. So you'll get 3 candidates that you can interview. You get to interview all 3 of them. You pick the one you like. If you don't like any of them, we can go again. But only once you pick the one you like do we actually sign a contract and pay. So the answer is we can staff any type of position. The ones that we typically staff in the Amazon world, because I'm sure that's sort of what you're asking, are things like brand managers, anything to do with keyword research, PPC managers. A lot of the times we'll go higher and actually place operation managers, COOs. Sometimes we'll place, lower level roles, graphic designers, basically anything, supply chain managers, anything in the entire spectrum.
I think I know what type of roles Chaim's looking to fill, and I'm pretty familiar just from my encounters with Multiply Me that Chaim, they can handle what you're looking for. So rest assured. On to point number 2. We have a special guest host with me today. I think you're familiar with him, Yoni from Getita. And I guess Yoni, tell Chaim what you do. What do you guys do at Getita?
Hey Chaim, so we just basically, if you connect your Amazon account with Getita, we're gonna go back 18 months. We're gonna find all these discrepancies with your inventory. So any of your inventory that got lost, damaged, destroyed, disappeared, or overcharged with fees, and you're eligible to get paid, we're gonna catch that. And then our team will open cases on your behalf until they're gonna manage all the back and forth until you're gonna get paid with reimbursements. So whatever is money that you owe and you're leaving currently behind, we're gonna make sure to put it back in your organization, in your pocket. So hopefully you'll be able to hire the Multiply Me, assistants and grow even more from there. So that's kind of the idea.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. Yoni, thank you for taking time of your day. Lippy, thank you for staying up late.
Guys,
definitely appreciate it.
It's not even late. I'm just getting to work now.
Hustle, baby, hustle.
Okay, well, I'll see you guys.
Music come back. Music is the outro coming in.
Outro song. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
You guys.
Have a good day.